They once worked together a long time ago. They're not friends now. They don't like each other. And yeah, 50 has taken every shot, especially when Diddy has been.
We've all seen the headlines, the courtroom footage, the viral clips of Diddy's downfall. But what we're about to uncover isn't just another chapter in his legal saga. This is the moment his own documentary became the weapon that turned his inner circle against him. The footage was supposed to be his legacy project, a controlled narrative shot by his own team in the days before his September 2024 arrest. Instead, it's now the smoking gun that has lawyers fleeing, insiders talking, and federal investigators asking new questions. Not about the crimes he was convicted for, but about the people who defended him. Because here's the twist. The real scandal isn't just what Diddy did. It's what his legal team allegedly did to keep him out of prison, and why some of them may now be facing their own indictments.
The question is he a criminal? Is he basically akin to a mob boss running several criminal enterprises? And while it's very clear to me he is a depraved, disgusting person, we have to prove that he violated the law.
Let's rewind to December 2nd, 2025. Netflix drops Sean Combs' The Reckoning, a 4-part expose executive produced by none other than 50 Cent, Diddy's longtime rival. Within 24 hours, it racks up 21.8 million views, a number that would be impressive for a blockbuster, let alone a documentary. But the real fireworks start before the credits even roll. Because buried in that footage, shot by Diddy's own camera crew just 6 days before his arrest, is a conversation so damning that his legal team allegedly tried to cancel the project before it aired. We're talking a frantic cease and desist letter fired off to Netflix, claiming the footage was illegally obtained. Netflix fires back. Everything was acquired legally. So why the panic? Insiders say it wasn't about the content itself. It was about who was listening and what they heard Diddy say in his own words. I need somebody who has dealt in the dirtiest of dirtiest, dirty business of media and propaganda. Not a metaphor, not a figure of speech. A direct order to his lawyers to bring in operatives willing to play in the ethical gray zones, if not cross the line entirely.
Well, what I feel about the documentary, they left a whole lot of key things out. If they was gonna do something and they're gonna say in the reckoning of Sean Combs, The Reckoning, or Diddy, The Reckoning and stuff like that, it should have been a lot of people that we lost because of him,
Now, let's connect the dots. This wasn't some offhand remark. This was September 10th, 2024, 6 days before federal agents would storm his properties. His legal team knew the indictment was coming. They knew the charges would include transportation for questionable activities, racketeering, and a pattern of behavior that prosecutors were framing as a criminal enterprise. So when Diddy tells his lawyers he wants a propaganda specialist, someone who operates in the shadows, we have to ask, was this just PR spin or was it something darker? Legal experts are now scrutinizing whether these tactics crossed into witness tampering, obstruction, or even jury contamination. And here's where it gets worse. Because while the cameras were rolling, Diddy wasn't just strategizing, he was documenting his own unraveling. In one clip, after greeting fans in Harlem, he gets back into his vehicle and declares he needs to bathe in boiling water with peroxide because he feels dirty from the contact. The implication? The man who built an empire on black excellence now saw his own community as something to sanitize away. But the real question is this. If he was this unfiltered on camera, what was he saying behind closed doors?
But the stories that they told in the documentary, bruh, come on. They could have went a whole lot deeper. They could have did a whole lot more.
Fast forward to the trial, where the documentary reveals another layer of alleged manipulation. Blogger Tisa Tells, one of the few independent observers allowed in the courtroom, describes how Diddy's PR team worked the lunchroom like a political war room. They weren't just handing out talking points, they were feeding highlighted transcripts to YouTubers, TikTokers, anyone with a platform willing to amplify their narrative. Remember, these jurors weren't sequestered. That means every night they could scroll through social media and encounter a carefully curated version of the day's testimony, one that painted Diddy as the victim of a witch hunt. Legal insiders are now whispering about whether this constitutes jury contamination, a serious enough offense that prosecutors could revisit the defense team's conduct. And if that happens, the lawyers who once shielded Diddy might find themselves in the crosshairs. But the real exodus started after the documentary dropped. Sources close to the situation claim that multiple attorneys have quietly distanced themselves from Diddy's extended legal battles. Some stopped taking his calls. Others allegedly scrubbed their names from professional directories. One insider put it bluntly, they're not just jumping ship, they're burning the life rafts. Why? Because the footage doesn't just implicate Diddy. It raises questions about what his legal team knew, when they knew it, and whether they crossed lines that could now come back to haunt them. And let's not forget the stakes. Over 50 civil cases are still pending against Diddy. If his lawyers are suddenly radio silent, it's not just about cutting ties. It's about self-preservation. Because if the FBI starts digging into whether evidence was suppressed, witnesses were influenced, or jurors were improperly swayed, the people who once stood between Diddy and prison might be the next ones facing charges.
So this one night, 50 called me up, and they got him on the phone. Me and him was just talking. We was talking about old time shit. Sit down with Black Hands, sit down with with Puff Kids, the whole Puff situation, and this documentary that he's going to be doing.
Now, let's talk about the timing. The documentary lands just as Diddy is serving his 50-month sentence, but the legal fallout is far from over. His conviction was on 2 counts of transportation for questionable activities, a fraction of what prosecutors originally threw at him. The jury acquitted him on the heavier charges of human trafficking and racketeering. But here's the kicker. The jurors themselves have since spoken out, and their comments are raising eyebrows. 2 of them, identified only as Juror 75 and Juror 160, admitted in interviews that they struggled with the definition of coercion. They described Diddy and Cassie Ventura's relationship as complicated and 2 people in love, despite the surveillance footage of him assaulting her in a hotel hallway. That footage, by the way, was so disturbing that even the jurors called it unforgivable. Yet they still couldn't convict on the top charges. So what changed their minds? Was it the defense's narrative, pushed through social media by those lunchroom PR operatives? Or was it something else? Something we haven't seen yet? And then there's the money. Diddy's legal fees during the trial were astronomical. 8 attorneys, round-the-clock strategy sessions, a defense that reportedly cost tens of millions. Insiders say his team convinced him he was coming home, that the charges wouldn't stick. They even booked him for public speaking engagements post-verdict, as if the acquittal was a foregone conclusion. But when the partial guilty verdict came down, Diddy wasn't just shocked. He was financially exposed. His empire, once worth billions, is now drowning in civil lawsuits. And if his lawyers start flipping to save themselves, the question isn't just what else they helped him hide. It's how much of his fortune was spent not just on his defense, but on silencing the people who could bury him.
To get out in front of this and, try to persuade Netflix not to come forward with it. I think it's an interesting argument because what they're claiming is, Curtis Jackson, aka 50 Cent, has had a long-standing, animosity against Diddy and sort of vice versa. And because he's at the helm, they're arguing this can't be taken seriously. This should sort of be seen as propaganda. And one of the things that Netflix hit back with was, yes, he's the executive producer. He doesn't necessarily have creative control. And that's something we...
But here's where the story takes another turn. Because while the documentary was making waves, Diddy's mother, Janice Combs, issued a scathing statement calling the project a pack of lies. She denied the claims of abuse in their household, the allegations that Diddy slapped her after the 1991 City College tragedy, the suggestions that his upbringing was anything but loving. Yet the footage tells a different story, one where Diddy himself seems to confirm the worst. In those hotel room clips, he's not just a man facing arrest. He's a man who knows the system is rigged in his favor, who believes his money and influence can bend reality. And for a while, it worked. His legal team kept him out of prison on the most serious charges. But now, with the documentary exposing their tactics, the tables have turned. The same lawyers who once promised him victory are now reportedly lawyering up themselves. And that brings us to the most chilling revelation of all. Because if Diddy's own footage is the noose tightening around his legal team, what else is out there? The documentary only scratches the surface. There are still unanswered questions about the freak-off gatherings, the alleged payments to silence participants, the rumors of blackmail tapes that never made it to trial. There's the matter of the 2 jurors who now admit they were confused by the instructions, who wondered aloud whether Cassie's relationship with Diddy was truly non-consensual or just a toxic love story. And there's the lingering question of why, in a trial where the prosecution presented surveillance video of an assault, the jury still hesitated. Was it the defense's spin? Or was it something more sinister? A behind-the-scenes campaign to shape the narrative before the jurors even deliberated?
So I think what Diddy was trying to say was, there's nothing to be done legally on the criminal front because no indictment had been dropped yet. But in the court of public opinion, it seemed like he wanted to take a more aggressive approach to put a certain message out there. And his attorney seemed to kind of think.
What we know for sure is this. The documentary wasn't just a reckoning for Diddy. It was a warning shot to everyone who ever enabled him. And if the lawyers are really starting to disappear, if the cease and desist letters are turning into subpoenas, then the next phase of this scandal isn't about what Diddy did. It's about who helped him do it, and what they're willing to reveal to save themselves. Because when the rats start fleeing the ship, they don't just abandon it. They take the blueprints with them. And in this case, those blueprints might just lead straight to the people who thought they were untouchable. We've been talking about the legal team's panic, the jurors' doubts, the footage that turned Diddy's own words against him. But let's follow the money, because that's where the real desperation starts to show. 50 Cent didn't mince words when he told interviewers that Diddy's finances are hemorrhaging, that he should have filed for bankruptcy protection the moment the indictments dropped. And when you look at the numbers, the picture gets grim fast. Diddy's legal fees during the federal trial alone reportedly topped 8 figures. Yes, you heard that right, tens of millions of dollars, just to secure a partial victory. But here's the catch. That was only the beginning. Right now, there are over 50 civil cases still pending against him, each one a potential financial landmine. Legal experts are whispering that his total liability could climb into the hundreds of millions, maybe more, once you factor in punitive damages, settlements, and the sheer volume of plaintiffs coming forward. And if his lawyers are suddenly ghosting him, it's not just about morality or ethics. It's about cold, hard math. Why keep defending a client who might not be able to pay you, especially when that client's legal strategies are now under the microscope? Sources say some attorneys are quietly distancing themselves not out of principle, but because they can't afford to be tied to a sinking ship. And if Diddy's empire was built on leverage, what happens when the leverage runs out?
Out and collect everybody's phone. So now it's just your word against a billionaire. You're gonna lose. Read this right there from that young man.
But the financial strain isn't just about the lawsuits. It's about the footage. Specifically, the moments where Diddy let his guard down in ways that could haunt him for years. Remember that clip where he steps out of the car after greeting fans in Harlem, visibly disgusted, declaring he needs to bathe in boiling water with peroxide because he feels dirty from the contact? That wasn't just an offhand comment. That was a man revealing his true feelings about the very people who made him a legend. And it gets worse, because while he was performing solidarity in public behind the scenes, his legal team was allegedly running a media operation that treated those same fans like pawns. Bloggers, YouTubers, anyone with a platform. According to witnesses like Tysa tells, they were fed highlighted transcripts, talking points, even prepackaged narratives to push online. The goal? To shape the story before jurors, who weren't sequestered, could see it for themselves. But here's the problem. If that strategy backfired, if the jurors saw through it, then the lawyers who orchestrated it might have just handed prosecutors a roadmap to revisit the case. And with Diddy's finances in freefall, those lawyers aren't just risking their reputations, they're risking their freedom. Now, let's talk about the people who actually took the stand, because the documentary didn't just give them a voice, it gave them credibility. Capricorn Clark, Diddy's former assistant, testified under oath that he kidnapped her at gunpoint in a plot to target Cassie's then-boyfriend, Kid Cudi. The jurors admitted they struggled to believe her, in part because she continued working for Diddy afterward. But the documentary changes that calculus. It doesn't just show Clark's testimony, it shows a pattern. Rodney Lil Rod Jones, the producer who sued Diddy for alleged misconduct, provided voicemails, videos, and first-hand accounts of being pressured into situations he didn't consent to. And then there's the footage of Diddy himself, complaining about feeling dirty after touching his own fans. When you put it all together, it's not just one accuser's word against his. It's a mosaic of behavior that the jurors might have dismissed in isolation, but becomes undeniable when stitched into a single narrative. And if that narrative starts to unravel the legal team's defense strategy, then the lawyers who once protected Diddy could find themselves answering for their role in suppressing it.
You gotta really look at what's going on. I've been around him a couple of times. Don't like the guy. And I know a lot of other people who he's done weird things to. And there are several men who have reached out to me telling me that they got their cakes took, basically.
But perhaps the most telling reaction came from Diddy's own mother. Janice Combs released a statement on December 7th, calling the documentary a pack of lies, and specifically denying that her son ever laid a hand on her. She dismissed Kirk Burroughs' claim that he witnessed Diddy slap her and call her a derogatory name after the 1991 City College tragedy as inaccurate and patently false. So why does this matter? Because if the allegations were truly baseless, why would the family feel the need to respond at all? The documentary didn't just expose Diddy, it exposed the cracks in his foundation. And when a mother has to publicly defend her son against claims of violence, it's not just a PR move, it's a sign that the damage is deeper than anyone wants to admit. The real question is this: if the documentary is as full of lies as Janice claims, why are so many people, from former employees to childhood friends, corroborating the same stories? And if those stories are true, what does that say about the legal team that helped bury them for decades? Now, let's pivot to the allegations that could reopen everything, the passing of Biggie and Shakur. The documentary doesn't just hint at Diddy's involvement, it puts it front and center. Dwayne Keefe D. Davis, the man awaiting trial for Shakur's passing, is heard on audio claiming Diddy offered to pay for the hit. Meanwhile, Kirk Burroughs, Diddy's former partner, accuses him of essentially leading Biggie into a dangerous trap by canceling a European trip and insisting on a promotional stop in LA, despite the escalating West Coast tensions. Now, legally, Diddy can't be tried for a hit for hire based solely on Keefe D's claims, especially since Keefe alleges the payment never happened. But here's where it gets interesting. Federal prosecutors have a habit of revisiting cold cases when new evidence, or new witnesses, emerge. And with the documentary reaching millions, former associates who once stayed silent might now feel emboldened to come forward. Imagine the domino effect. One new witness leads to another, which leads to a reopened investigation, which leads to subpoenas for Diddy's old legal team. Because if they helped cover up one thing, what else did they help hide?
Look at how many people he affected negatively. That was his trade-off to gain what he had. His former bodyguard, Gene Deal, said he seen him doing a ritual where they dove. What is that? And I feel like it's being overlooked because they see him doing the dance moves with the baggy clothes. You know, some of the ladies in his videos were trans ladies.
And that brings us to the biggest unanswered question of all. What happens to the lawyers? Right now, Diddy is serving his 50-month sentence, but the people who defended him are still out there, still practicing, still connected to some of the most powerful figures in entertainment. But their tactics, the alleged media manipulation, the witness coordination, the propaganda campaigns, are now exposed to millions of viewers. And if even a fraction of those claims are true, then we're not just talking about ethical violations, we're talking about potential criminal liability. Because when you cross the line from aggressive defense into obstruction, into witness tampering, into jury contamination, you're not just risking your law license, you're risking prison time. And with Diddy's financial empire crumbling, those lawyers no longer have the safety net of a deep-pocketed client to protect them. So the real scandal isn't just what Diddy did, it's what his legal team allegedly did to keep him out of prison, and whether they'll be the next ones headed in. But here's the thing about documentaries like this. They don't just expose the past, they change the future. Every time someone new watches Sean Combs' The Reckoning, another potential witness might decide it's finally safe to speak. Another lawyer might start sweating over their role in the cover-up. Another civil plaintiff might see their case in a new light. And with each passing day, the pressure mounts? Because if the lawyers are really starting to abandon ship, if the financial walls are closing in, if the FBI starts asking new questions about old cases, then this isn't just the end of Diddy's empire, it's the beginning of a reckoning for everyone who helped him build it. And that, my friends, is a story that's only just getting started. So tell us, do you think Diddy's legal team will be the next to face charges, or is this just the final act of a fallen mogul? Drop your theories in the comments, smash that like button if you're still reeling from these revelations, and don't forget to subscribe, because when the next bombshell drops, you'll want to be the first to see it. Until then, stay sharp, stay skeptical, and remember, in the world of power and scandal, the truth always finds its way out. We'll see you in the next one.